Hi, everybody. Roz McCarthy here. So happy to be with you guys. Happy, was it four? I mean, we're a little bit past 420, but so excited to be with you guys. I got my good friends from MCBA here, so we're excited. Listen, take a minute, ping some people in. Make sure you're sharing this. This is going to be an extraordinary conversation, and we're not going to spend all day about it. We're going to get in, we're going to say what we're going to say, and then we're going to say goodbye. I'm here in Vermont, actually. So Roz McCarthy, founder, CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I'm on a retreat, a cannabis retreat. I'm learning and growing, and also being able to replenish my own soul and spirit to be able to go on further. So I'm happy to be here, and I want to shift it to Amber. Introduce yourself, Amber. Let everybody know who you are.
Hello, Roz. Enjoy that fresh mountain air for me. My name is Amber Littlejohn. I am the executive director of MCBA, which is the Minority Cannabis Business Association. I am happy to be here. It is always a joy when I get to sit down and join with our family over at M4MM. I think it's really important for the community to know and understand that we work together. It is essential for all of the equity orgs in the industry to be working together because we have a big mission and a big lift, and it is really truly only together that we are going to get there. So it is always a joy when I get to work with you and really just to share time with you, Roz.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. And next we have Todd Hughes. Todd, introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone. Todd Hughes here. For those that don't know me, I'm the chairman of the board for Minority Cannabis Business Association. Basically got into cannabis specifically to help people that are disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. And I think M4MM and a lot of other equity organizations have been doing a lot of great work. And I think we got to keep the charge. So looking forward to the conversation and getting this thing rolling. So that's me, over and out.
Absolutely. And last but not least, we got our brother from M4MM, Eric Foster, who is our national policy director. You're going to hear his voice and not see his face, but Eric, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody, and I hope you didn't hear me when I said, not again, because my cell phone signal was getting weak and I got kicked out. But I'm Eric Foster. I am the National Policy Director for Cannabis and Hemp for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and also just got a promotion at my other job. I'm now Vice President of Strategy and Business Development at Banks and Company, which is a African American owned public affairs firm in Michigan. And I am so grateful that Roz has given me this opportunity to be a part of M4MM. We at Banks and Company have been a member for a few years. And when I first came back on board, this was the first organization that I reached out to for us to join based on the work we were doing consulting to people going into the industry or in the industry and helping us to learn more about it and grow. And so things have come full circle where now I'm able to help with what pushes we need to make to really bring true racial, social, economic, health, community, and environment related justice into the industry and improve not just social equity, but really social economics and how we move this train in the right direction. So thank you, Roz, and thank you, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you. So let me just kind of take you back about a year and some months, or maybe a year and about 14 days or so. We ended up doing a program. It's called More Than a Moment, and basically it was right after the George Floyd tragedy, and there was a call for cannabis to step up and to really speak out on systemic racism, how it was affecting the cannabis industry. We partnered with MCBA, and basically we had this long, drawn-out conversation. It was at night. We had C.J. Wallace with Think Big. We had Mr. Bernard Noble with Be Noble, who was also in the film The Grass is Greener. We had Kim Rivers. We had Dr. Oladera. We had the folks from Women Grow. It was just a conversation to say, we can do more. We can do more. And so between that time and now, cannabis companies during that time made commitments, and their commitments were a range from we're going to hire more, we're going to put directors in place. And so basically, we're having this conversation today to just go back and go, all right, it's been a year. Where are we now? Where are we sitting? And where do we go from here? So Amber, I want to flip it to you and just ask you a question. Like during this time last year, when you saw the cannabis companies really saying, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to make this pledge, and what was your thoughts? What was in your mind? Were you hopeful, or what was your feelings when you saw all this stuff going on?
Cautiously optimistic would be the feeling that I had in terms of the commitments, because as you know, that those of us in the community that were experiencing this, and those of us in this space were knowing that we had a job to do by way of making sure that we are directing resources and that we are helping guide the conversation. But we were also dealing with our own personal experience of what we were going through last year. So when I look, the first thing that I thought was, okay, you're talking about it. And that is really that is the first step. And the conversation that I had with every company and every organization was, you need to think about what you are going to do beyond the press ops, beyond the social media posts. What are you going to do that is sustainable and that is impactful? And so I think the efforts along those lines have truly varied, and the amount of progress made really varies.
Has varied, and we're going to talk more about that. So, Todd, your same question. Your thoughts when you saw the industry start to galvanize around the post George Floyd tragedy. We're going to do this. When you saw these commitments come down the pipeline, what were your thoughts?
I mean, honestly, cautiously optimistic was a good term. I was hopeful, and ultimately, I realized that it's not their job to make it happen. It's us holding them accountable. And so I think organizations like ours have, folks look to us, for advice. They look to us for insights and how we can, deliver. And I think I was excited about that opportunity, and a few organizations reached out, and we had that opportunity, and we've tried to craft. And I don't say tried, we did craft programs, but those need to expand. It's not the only efforts that we should put in place. They should grow, and I'm excited to continue that a year later, and partner with you all and other organizations to increase those efforts. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, I went through. I was taken aback from, the murder of George Floyd. I'm happy that there were some charges that went through, and he was convicted. But ultimately, there's been more going on throughout the Black and Brown community that, the job's not done yet. So we need to step our game up and continue working. That's me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we got Eric back in. Hold on. Let me make sure I get Eric back in. I think, and I want to share something. And for those people that are interested in knowing, not just the cannabis industry, but corporate America in general pledged almost $50 billion towards, towards social justice reform and doing, the build out the work that needs to be done. And to be honest with you, only a fraction of that money has been spent or has been delivered, which actually spurred this conversation, right, Amber? Like, because if the same thing, if it's happening with corporate America, then, truth be told, we probably will see some of that crossover to cannabis, don't you think?
Yeah, in fact, our challenges are going to be amplified, because when it comes to funding and the assessment of risk, you are looking at banks and lenders that are normally looking at factors to determine risk that are exclusive of our communities, even when they aren't the best indicators of default. So when you're looking at people willing to invest and give money, and they're doing an assessment of where it goes, we are already at a disadvantage because of
Right.
how folks are assessing risk. You add in the exponential disadvantage that comes with cannabis, and then you add in the additional disadvantage of a lot of the folks that we are trying to get involved in the cannabis industry are people that are selected because they have been the most impacted by the war on drugs. And so if you're taking that community, that comes with an additional disadvantage. So we need to be looking at the criteria that is used for organizations to give away money, for financial institutions to give away money, for investors to invest money, and really taking a look and reassessing the bottom line investment there. So not only how we're looking at risk, but also what the investment means, and the investment in the community and the individual means holistically to that organization. Another thing, and this is something that we've talked about, Roz, is many don't know that the Trump administration put in place a policy that certain organizations that doesn't allow nonprofit status for new cannabis organizations. So your organization is grandfathered into this, but organizations like mine that had not done that process prior to a certain date are unable to take advantage of that, which means that money that would come in for nonprofits is unavailable to us. And not only is it unavailable to us, but it's unavailable to any of these new organizations that are working and doing extraordinary work within the community to both assist social equity and minority operators, but also to really address the harms of the war on drugs.
Absolutely. Hey, so I'm going to bring in, make sure, Eric Foster, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you all, and I do hate that I'm on the road because I'm actually going to a cannabis event here in Michigan to speak about M4MM and some of the work that we're doing. To what we're talking about with respect to the corporate sector and what the corporate sector committed to do versus what they're actually doing, we need to ensure that as much as we can in policy, through statutory law, municipal ordinance, where municipalities have additional jurisdictional authority for licensing, and through administrative rules, that we are.
Okay, Eric, you're breaking up a little bit, brother. All right. So I think what he's saying is in regards to
that the corporate.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't hear nothing said. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Finish your statement.
Oh, I was trying to say that we need to codify as much as we can in statutory law. In
all right, we're gonna put you on pause.
Rules and in municipal ordinances. Okay.
Right. You coming in and out. We're gonna put you on pause a little bit, but listen in, and then we'll try you back in a minute. And Amber, because of your policy background, I know you can summarize what he's saying in regards to the codifying policy that's going to basically put some certain things and certain metrics in place. So if you're a regulated operator, you have no choice in the matter.
Yeah, and it is something that there were actually efforts in Los Angeles to do just that. And in truth, they didn't go far enough. The city of Los Angeles back in, I think, 2017-18 had proposed to do a community reinvestment ordinance. And we need to even go a step further, where it is part of the criteria for licensing, where there needs to be a community development or a community reinvestment component, and there needs to be ongoing community oversight of that. Because what we don't want are companies to come in and, first of all, social equity and how you are engaging the community needs to be a measured element of determining whether you're eligible for licensure. What we don't want to continue to do is bring in companies that are not good corporate citizens, companies that are not willing to invest in the communities that have been harmed by cannabis prohibition. And so that should be criteria for licensing. And just like we're using for there is a federal law called the Community Reinvestment Act. And it's really to encourage banks to be good corporate citizens and to give them incentives for doing so. But it also gives the ability for ongoing oversight and sort of public insight into what folks are doing. And so we want it to be measured. We don't want people to just say, I'm going to do this. We want to be
Right.
able to check back in 2 years and say, okay, well, how are you doing?
Right.
And to have that be sustainable and to have that be a condition of ongoing licensure. Because far too often, again, there are a lot of promises made and a lot of commitments, but without the ability to have ongoing oversight, we really are not going to get the kind of impact that we want. And it should be absolutely a condition of licensure.
Yeah.
So,
The
and
article.
actually, to
Go
tie
ahead.
that
Go ahead.
in, if y'all can hear me, to tie that in, you need to ensure that in the statutory laws and the administrative rules, that you're referencing the other regulatory powers of economic development, zoning, and land use that give states and municipalities the ability to codify actions and outcomes. Also, if your state has diversity, minority business requirements or goals, it needs to be referenced in the commercial marijuana laws and the hemp laws. So that way it's an easy add on, because when the corporates push back, they try to push back and say that, well, the statutory law is standalone and doesn't have reference to any other laws of regulating business in your state. That's not true. You regulate all businesses, including marijuana businesses, but to make it clearer, it needs to be referenced so that you have more room to then put those policies into action.
So what we did was we created after the More Than a Moment last year, we created a slide of very specific concepts and ideas and things for these different brands and corporations to really tap into. So I'm going to share something with you guys. And Todd and Amber and Eric, I would love to hear your feedback. When it comes to Media Expo, over the last year, have you seen that there's been an increase in diversity and inclusion from Black and Brown contributors, an increase in the amount of positive press, invite of Black media outlets, or are you ensuring that conference marketing, collateral material, and inclusion is happening for these conference speakers? Your thoughts on that?
Todd, did you want to chime in? I can take it until one of the gentlemen jump in. I will definitely say conferences have been very mindful of ensuring that the speakers are a little bit more diverse. So I will say that is one place that we are seeing a shift. In terms of diversity and inclusion, if we're talking about at the corporate level, still a long way to go. Far too often I hear, oh, we just didn't have the candidate pool, or this is who applied, when in reality, it takes work. It takes you expanding your network. It takes you actually getting out there and going into the community. It may even take job training. It may take you advocating for changing the laws so that you can hire folks that have been truly the most impacted. So, I think there has been more attention given to it. But if we're still looking at the C-suite and senior level executives at most cannabis companies, in terms of, and we subtract diversity and inclusion positions that are, positions that are specifically geared towards diversity and inclusion, we have a long way to go.
Hey, so Amber, you're saying that the CSR positions, they don't count.
They do count. And I think we have some incredible community leaders. But we need to be other places too, because equity occurs not just, I think Eric was touching on this, equity is not just about the set of social equity provisions. Equity, the opportunity to create an equitable industry exists in every part of every framework, both the statutes, the regulations, all aspects of your business, whether it be the regulations. There is always an opportunity to create and develop equity. So if we are
I think we lost you. Hey, Todd, you want to jump in a little bit and talk about our subject right now is Media Expo. Are you seeing more media articles on subjects outside of diversity and inclusion, showing Black and Brown contributors? Has there been an increase in positive press about Black and Brown's advancement in the industry, inviting Black media outlets to events? Over the last year, if you could think back, are you seeing more of these type of opportunities, or seeing more things spotlighted from a media and an expo perspective?
I'll say not enough, but I have seen some. Just recently, I seen the note from New York and the legislator with the Assemblywoman Wright and Mr. Alexander being added to the Cannabis Commission there. I think that's commendable, and looking forward to seeing how programs roll out up there, right? And I think there's when it comes to events and such, there's continuous, the minority luncheons from MJ Biz, and the outreach to small groups through associations days and such. But there's folks stepping up to the plate, right? There's the Black Canacon coming up in November, right? And us taking matters into our own hands, which is pretty awesome. We miss Christy Price, and
Yeah.
I think that's what we need to do more often, right? But ultimately, I'll say in general, not enough effort has been put into inviting people in. But from my perspective, there's some headway, but there's a long way to go.
Gotcha. Let's talk.
I don't know if y'all can hear me, but
Yeah,
my
yes.
thoughts, two quick points. One, no. And two, for it to get better, we need to quantify where we are right now with regards to metrics of that attention across traditional media, industry-specific media, and then media of color. And then also, what do we want to see? What percentage growth of coverage do we want to see and representation? And then track it that way. I think, Roz, and I know there's a lot on the plate, and I think that's something that we can add on, is to do that and kind of assess where we stand right now and where we want to get to, and work with our partners like NCBA and others, or MBCA. I'm sorry if I got the acronym wrong.
MCBA.
To get us to, thank you, to get us to that point so everybody can work from the same scorecard.
Well, that's a great point, because around the same time is when Counter-Inclusive came out with their accountability list. And so there's been some efforts towards it. And it's just been, I don't know why we have not had something that's going to grade these companies and brands in regards to their intentionality of what they say. And maybe it's not even what they say, but not even worried about that, but just giving a area of different levels or areas to grade on and see where they fall out. And it starts first internally. I believe that if you don't have the right folks in the right place to drive this internally, you can't expect an external community engagement plan that's going to get executed. That's just me.
Well, we'll get there now that, well, one, thankfully, being able to be a part and bringing some of my corporate background to that, and having worked in that space of seeing those sorts of metric level setting. So then we can build year over year, month over month across a number of sectors. And I think putting together an actual real scorecard to measure equity, diversity, inclusion, community impact for the states, but also for the major corporations and even for the minority operators will help us going forward.
Yeah. Amber, have you guys, or Ty, have you guys ever looked at this as a area to focus on or look at, or outsource it in regards to this kind of scorecard process?
We have, and we actually are. I'm actually going to let Todd take that and talk about an initiative that we have that will be coming your way very soon.
All right, let's go, Todd. Give us a little tea, Todd.
Yeah. So, in order to hold organizations accountable and understand how folks are executing and implementing social equity, we're creating a social equity survey project where we're going to be reaching out to different organizations and getting the impact and input from them as to how they are delivering on the metrics that they said they were going to be accountable for, and understanding from not just our the organizations, but our members and others of the deliverables that folks and metrics that folks said they would live up to, and scanning across the country what social equity programs have, what value have those programs been able to deliver. And so, Amber, if you want to articulate more on that.
Yeah, so it's
Take it
really
away.
exciting. So I'm sure, Roz, I'm sure that you all get the same, and Eric, you get the same questions all the time. What social equity programs are there in the country, and what do they do? And so I was tired of not having an answer to that. So
Right.
we looked at every social equity program in the country, state and local. But we didn't want to just stick with the social equity provisions, because I think, again, Eric touched on this earlier. A lot of the inequities and the barriers to entry and sustainability come from outside of the social equity framework. They come from the existing medical market. They come from the adult use framework. They come from funding mechanisms, application selection, all of these things that create barriers. So we're looking at 41 different data points for not only every social equity program, but then every adult use and medical program in the country. And this will provide us with this tool. And so the data is all there. Right now, we're drafting a report with some of our kind of top line findings and conclusions from this. And I will tell you, it is not pretty. The feeling of equity that we get from these programs is a lot different than what is actually there in statute or regulation.
Man, that's super interesting. So we're going to be able to do something like
Yeah.
One thing I found that was really interesting was focus on board appointments to include more Black and Brown individuals who have ties and experience in the industry. And if we just look at from a board of director perspective for some of these companies, if that's one of your measurement tools, I think in my mind that's an area that definitely needs you will have to look high and low to find someone of color sitting on these boards, in my opinion.
A definite need for improvement. I am finding the trend is star power. So bringing in a celebrity person of color, which is, again, there is value there. But how about you bring in a Black banker or somebody that is in compliance or somebody that is a lawyer? So again, it's encouraging companies to value and look for talent and look for the unique value that diversity adds in a multitude of positions, and being able to try and, again, gather kind of the diversity of perspectives in other places beyond sort of the celebrity flash or just the diversity and inclusion elements.
Another area, track hiring, retention, and promotion demographics and make that information publicly available. Todd, your thoughts on just tracking our hiring and not just at the entry level, really could be critical in regards to how do we shed a light on what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we were working with the Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission, we made a recommendation that we have some of the legally licensed organizations, self-submit this input and, be held accountable for hitting certain diversity statistics for their organizations. So I think that's absolutely important, having transparency and showing
Try again. Can't hear you. All right, try now.
Can you hear me now?
Got you now.
So you heard nothing I said?
Nothing. Start from the beginning.
So I say, yeah, like when I was working with the Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission, we made a recommendation that they uphold a requirement for organizations to annually or quarterly put out their diversity statistics overall, and not just at the entry level, but at the C-suite and down. I don't think that has been implemented yet, but ultimately, as new programs roll out or new legislation rolls out, I think those accountability and transparency standards are important, so that we'll put it in plain sight, and hopefully that will allow for more social equity directors, HR directors, people and culture directors to be hired, and more board members to come on board at these large multi-state operators that are representative of the world, representative of the country, right? And take on perspectives not only from the good old boys club, obviously, but from other socioeconomic backgrounds. So I think that's very important, and something that we should continue to push for in different policies going forward.
I agree too. Hey, Eric Foster, would you think
Yes.
from a federal side, some of these things when it comes to employee demographics and hiring trends, is that a policy that can be put into place, or would that be something that becomes automatically if we have federal legalization? Out of curiosity, because with federal legalization or federally, the government is tracking, workforce demographics, right, and equal opportunity, hiring, things of that nature.
So nothing will happen just with legalization. It needs to be added either in statutory language or a lever to add it through the administrative rules process. Now, the CAO Act, the Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, does have a detailed section that speaks to tracking that sort of data and getting that data from across the different states that have commercial operators, which is good. And at the state level, actually in Michigan, on the Racial Equity Task Force that myself and our Michigan chapter president Samal Kasan were on, we recommended, and the state has implemented, something like what you do in Maryland in terms of getting that data from the licensees through survey on a number of components, including purchasing, including hiring, as well as community involvement and ownership. And hopefully the first report will be rolled out this year to show where we are today and where we need to go going forward. Maryland was a good model, so thank you, Maryland, and for that, because it helped give us a level set of what we could do here in Michigan.
Right. No, I get it. I get it. So there's some. So in a nutshell, there's some policy that we can put in place, and there's some states that have done some of the things that we're trying to get accomplished. As we are looking at this, and we're not trying to beat a dead horse, but again, for those people who are just joining us, we started out with More Than a Moment last year, making sure that dismantling systemic racism in cannabis, looking at it from an equity perspective, social justice perspective, media, all these different areas that the industry can improve on. And so one of the questions that always comes up is, well, if we do this and people make these commitments, who's going to enforce it? Who's going to be the people that hold folks accountable or what have you? And how often do you do this? Do you do it yearly? Do you do it, every 2 or 3 years or what have you? So Todd, question for you. You mentioned about the piece that's coming out from MCBA as time goes along. Is this something that you see yourself doing on an annual basis, or every other year, or how frequent must we have some type of way to be able to measure what's being done or what's being said and what's being done?
Yeah, I think it needs to be consistently evaluated. And also, I wanted to shout out Nina Park's social equity certification as well. I think some of those kind of tool sets are absolutely needed. And for us, our strategic plan is to continuously, engage and annually or biannually is kind of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Can I
Fantastic.
can I add to that, Roz, a
Yeah,
little bit? So partly, and we are a tremendous advocate of this at a company level, and now with M4MM and in my level with the organization, no automatic renewals of licenses, and writing into the licensing renewal process demonstration of these actions that are required in administrative rules or statutory law. So that way you have something to measure and you can define that the license cannot be renewed if you fail to have met these goals, because granting a license is like entering into an economic development agreement with this business. So we use that approach, and we've actually done this in Michigan with some communities that we've lobbied separate of it for MM that have written it into their ordinances, where you have to prove you've met these economic equity goals. And if you do not, the municipality can deny you a license when it comes time for renewal. And you've got to provide detailed reporting before renewal. So that's another measure to put in, is codifying that in the legal regulatory process.
absolutely. Hey, Amber, when it comes to your members with MCBA, are you getting any feedback in regards to, are they finding easier funding? Are we still having a bottleneck when it comes to funding? I'm not even talking about touching clean. I'm talking about on the ancillary side as well. Any thoughts? Are you getting, comments about, where some of their pain points still? Because one of the areas that came up last year was that we would have more resources with a minority to reduce more resources, meaning funding, to help reduce business startup expenses, legal marketing, office space, and to help people get to be able to operate and be able to expand out and quicker.
So no. In fact, I think the need for, as the industry expands and as opportunities expand and desire to take advantage of opportunity and participation in this industry grow, so does the need for capital. But again, given the federal restrictions that we have on that exist on the regulatory side, it is really difficult for cannabis companies to get funding or to even just get basic banking services. This is not a problem for the multi-state operators, as they are often very well capitalized. So that problem has not changed. And I will say that is one of the big pain points where there is significant opportunity for advocates and big industry advocates and small industry advocates to be more aggressive in incorporating that into our policies, because we advocate for social equity programs and then we forget that they need to be funded. They needed to be funded adequately and they needed to be funded on time. If we are funding social equity initiatives, training, support, startup capital with adult use tax revenues, that means that there is no support for folks at the pre-application phase. There is no support for people at the application phase, which means that we are essentially shut out of the market. So unless we are getting creative with holistic policy changes, funds, big giant funding commitments, we will still be in this place, because these one-off incubators, I'm no knock on that. We are happy if one of our community gets the opportunity, but incubators, partnerships, one-offs are really not sufficient to create systemic change as far as funding.
What do you think about
so
that?
Ross, piggybacking on that, and
go ahead.
Oh no, I just wanted to piggyback on that, and franchising is definitely a concept that I'm interested in. helping facilitate. But I think it's really important, Roz, for us to emphasize, groups like M4MM have chapters in every state, and the work that your folks are doing on the ground, and the I'll say the not the lobbyists, but the advocates, the people who are advocating on our behalf in state legislators are extremely important. And one example of getting access to capital or getting access to license, getting access to the industry is Connecticut right now, right? And so I think a lot of your folks and people on the ground in Connecticut did a great job of shaping the policy that came out and allowed for incentives for MSOs to bring folks on and allocate, a percentage of their cultivation facility to a social equity applicant in order to save 1.5 million or $3 million, right?
Yeah.
I think, policies like that in the future, and I'll say building upon those types of policies are very important. And the fact that folks can, look at that as a model going forward. And I think the Connecticut did a great job, and I commend everyone up there for getting it done. So that's one place where that I think we can piggyback on.
And that was a lot of Jason Ortiz as well, his people. We were just supporting where we could. But there's been some strong coalition building up in Connecticut. What I'm excited about is that we use the Connecticut model to go reform other different models, or to be the playbook for new Missouri that wants to come online, in Alabama that wants to come online, a Louisiana that wants to come online. We're not going to be able to make a change like this overnight, but if you take models that really have some promise, in my opinion, that becomes like the new model. You start there as your baseline when you have these other new states coming online, and we go and we make it, we rock and roll from there.
Yeah, and I think our group should continue to find ways to pull people together and train them on how to advocate for themselves and impact policy.
So Amber, this is our, you guys, let's do something where how to represent yourself in a deal, or who do you get to represent you when you're trying to put together a deal? How do you come correct when you're looking for a deal? I think that's so critical for our businesses to know what to do.
Absolutely. We later this month, and all of you joining us from M4MM are welcome. MCBA is doing, in partnership with INCBA, a legal formation clinic. So it'll be on the weekend, and it will literally be you sitting there looking at how to put together legal agreements, and your corporate formation for the cannabis industry, because this is one area that we definitely need help. And so again, it is through partnerships and being able to share and amplify resources that we can get what's needed to the community. And again, access to legal services, accounting services, and really democratizing that knowledge is going to be so important for all of us.
There's a sister that we had on Can I Talk with Roz last week. Her name is Desiree Anderson. She's with Anderson Accounting. And she's a CPA and as well as a EA, which stands for, is one of the certifications you get in order to represent someone that's being audited by the IRS. I forgot something, enroll agent or something like that. But man, did she open our eyes up, not only to just Cannabis 280E, but she talked about, preparing to get, preparing for to go public, or even to do crowdsourcing. I don't know if everybody knows that in order to crowdsource on these crowdsourcing platforms, that you have to submit some type of paperwork to the SEC that does some forecasting and does some financials. She was just so on it in regards to where we need to be. And she made us feel okay with us not knowing, I was like, what makes me feel comfortable with you, Desiree, is that you don't make me feel guilty about not knowing what you know. And I don't know if you guys get that from other different businesses, but sometimes that, people they already know what they don't know, and they may be in a mess, and they just need someone to go, okay, listen, come on, let's figure this out together. Right, Todd?
Absolutely. We have to share information, share resources, and not be afraid to ask hard questions. I think Black and brown folks sometimes have, the ego, right, that says I can do it all, and I don't want to give up any equity in my company, and I can handle my own agreements, and I can, do my own accounting until it's too late and you're being audited, or it's too late and you don't meet a SEC regulation and you get shut down. So absolutely, absolutely.
Yep. Hey, Eric Foster, we got a question here. It says, which state should we model at this point? So we talked about Connecticut. Is there another state that you like, Eric, that could be a great model in regards to hitting some of these key points to encourage more corporate cannabis working with social equity and minority-owned businesses? I don't know if Eric heard me or not. He might not have heard me. So okay, go for it, Eric.
Actually, I did. It took me a minute to get off the mute. So right now, there's no one state that I will comfortably point to and say this is the model. There are states that have pieces, and I've been.
Oh, hey, Eric, you got something good to say, brother. We can't hear you. All right, listen.
I can piggyback off of what Eric said if we lost him.
Yeah, go, Amber.
I think Eric and I have been like this. So I will just say that there are elements of good things in all states. Definitely through this beautiful data collection project that we've done, we are able to see, really, to better identify why things aren't working. And sometimes it's the underlying medical framework that is causing problems. Sometimes it is funding issues that are causing problems. So again, it's important that we are identifying not just the provisions, but how those provisions are working or not working within a given framework and why they didn't. So we need to look at it both on an individual initiative basis and then holistically within given political systems and markets.
No, I agree 100%.
Which reminds me, MCBA typically does a model policy at the federal, state, and municipal level. And we're going to be exercising that effort at the one of our events very soon, if Amber wants to highlight that. But taking the best practices and the top minds in the industry and pulling those from each of the states that are doing well. And I'm not saying anyone's doing well, but some of those provisions that are working and incorporating it into a model policy for for anybody to tap into and leverage.
I want to give a shout out to some folks, and they're our sponsor, but not only are they sponsored, but I've seen, like, if you talk about a company that I've seen well, if you do a 360, you're back at the same point. So maybe it's a 180. Is that how you're supposed to say it? But if in regards to really having a commitment, and I've been not only seeing it in action, but I've been on a couple phone calls. And shout out to Cureleaf, and they're rooted in good. First and foremost, to be able to say, I'm going to do something, but create a brand around it holds you really accountable. Because when you say, I'm putting a brand that has my logo that is attached to it, that means that someone's going to hold you accountable to this whole new brand that you've created and the work you say you're going to do. And I just want to give them a shout out, Khadijah Tribble, for the work that she's been doing in her team. The creativity, in my opinion, has been, just outstanding. I got a chance to see them at the National Cannabis Festival in DC 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago now. And they have a two Black-centric, one social equity, one not, I think, brands that are coming out. And I would just love your feedback, Amber and Todd, on how do you feel about, like, are there any other examples out there, especially getting Black and brown and social equity brands on the shelf? What's your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, I definitely agree with you on the efforts that Cureleaf has done as well. I think it's been really wonderful to watch. They have joined MCBA this year and have been just incredible supporters of our work, and really coming in with just, hey, we believe in you and the mission, and letting us go forth and do good work. So I definitely enjoy working with them and the team there as well. We we have other, companies that I think are really doing exceptional work. We work with Parallel, in Pennsylvania, and we've been doing expungement clinics and career fairs with them, and they're really pushing again to
Yeah.
invest meaningfully in the work that they're doing on the ground. They have been extraordinary supporters of our federal policy work. Cresco is another brand where we have worked with them, and they have been, again, great supporters of policy work and really on the ground and willing to be aggressive. I think it's important for folks to realize that there will always be, we will never be perfectly aligned with big multi-state operators. We will never be perfectly aligned with most other business entities, but we do have synergies, and there are opportunities to direct resources and direct policies and really kind of create allies, whether that be through narrow synergies or really kind of broad partnerships.
Wow. I think you said a lot. Todd, your thoughts?
I'm gonna keep it 100. The industry and the allure of cannabis was built on the backs of black and brown people. And so if your organization doesn't have representation of those brands on your shelves, or the people that are behind those brands, I don't really see how you can really be successful in the industry. I know a lot of folks are just happy to have access to cannabis, but ultimately I think large brands need to pay homage to the trailblazers and the people who went to jail for this and came back out, and like Virgil Grant, and actually was able to establish a brand and products and others, right? Is to really focus in on what supplier diversity looks like, and how we can make sure that, like I said, they pay homage to the folks that came before, and allow for them the opportunity to shine on their shelves. And if they don't, I don't think folks should support it. But that's just me.
And you kept it 100. I mean it's kind of black and white in a nutshell. And I think there is tremendous opportunity on the West Coast because of their licensing their licensing structure and how that's put together. They've gotten super creative. I think there's a model for us to watch. I think states like Colorado, where you see some, I call them, they're close to being damn near pioneers now, that they can do better. And so we're starting to see, policy that's starting to push. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as new reform, new policy comes into play, and seeing what these brands are looking at. And then when federal legalization happens and you can cross over state lines and what have you, and the consumer now can drive what they want, because now they don't have to worry about, well, I only can get it in my state. That's when I think people, they're going to really start trying to pay attention, and it may be too late. Eric Foster, any thoughts? All right, I just want to make sure I didn't get you. So listen, guys, as we wrap up here, I want to, last question, I'm going to round robin. I'm going to start with you, Todd. The future of the whole, more than a moment. If someone says, if you see a company, when you say you can do more, what do you see the future? What is more? In your opinion, how do you see this being a mantra that is adopted, that's accepted, and that we're actually seeing quantifiably that folks are doing more?
Yeah. Honestly, the future to me is, it sounds like a lot of work for us. Uphill battle. Federal legalization, and without taking in consideration disenfranchised people, and who's been impacted by the war on drugs in general, I think it's going to be a bad deal, right, for a lot. So, it was great that we were able to provide some comments back to the CAO bill.
Yes.
And I think that, the future looks like continuing a coalition build across, the country, to establish, groups of folks that are shaping the industry, holding folks accountable. And like I said, it's a lot of hard work for us. So we need more people to join M4MM and MCBA. And we need more ideas. We need more great minds. I think, in any organization, you reach a point of, exhaustion, burnout. We need fresh blood, new eyes, people from different industries to come in and, focus in. And other pieces, the current situation in Congress, the House is going to flip probably and soon, and we need to make sure that we have advocates on every street corner, making sure that the new provisions don't block people out. Last year, we had a unfortunate incident where the MORE Act at the last minute had a provision blocking people that had previous criminal convictions from getting access to the industry as business owners or employees. Being able to catch that, pull that out, and be at the table when these conversations are being held, when these policies are being shaped is extremely important. And like I said, it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think with our continuous discipline and effort and being consistent, I think we can shape the future ourselves. And I think that's something that Steve Jobs would say, the best way to create the future is the best way to predict the future is to create it yourself.
Absolutely. Hey, Eric Foster, are you with us? Can you hear us?
I'm back now. I completely lost, and I don't know how much longer we're going, unfortunately, because I still have a ways to drive, and I might get kicked back off. Okay, good.
We're wrapping up, and we just want to know your prediction of the future of this conversation. When we say you can do more, meaning the industry, what's your prediction? What do you think the future, the opportunities are when we say you can do more? Talking to the industry.
So to the industry, the only allies that the industry has in Congress are Democrats. And it doesn't matter what we say or do, the Republicans are not allies. So the industry needs to, if you don't want to see the continuation of no action on the Morris Act and other acts, you need to support those who actually want to help you. And so the cannabis industry can have a big impact on turnout in 2022. It's no guarantee that we lose the Senate or the House. Turnout is key. Separately, we're still going to be a few years away from federal legalization anyway, because we have to build up the numbers in the Senate that support it. But we can go state by state. And I think this is what I would say is a prediction. State by state, working collectively to improve the existing structures that they have so that we can get better outcomes, more economic return and activity, more inclusive policy, and really uplift Black and brown folks in this industry. That's what I see we'll be able to do at least over the next couple of years. And I think that this conversation will help.
Yeah, absolutely. And we thank you for your feedback and input. Amber, last but not least, as I wrap up, your thoughts on the future and what we can do or what the industry can. When we say you can do more, what does that mean for the future of cannabis in the industry?
So the critical necessary step here is for companies to take a look at the policies that they are supporting, the millions of dollars that they are dumping into state initiatives and into federal policy. And they need to make sure that what they are advocating for or allowing to go through is actually aligned with what they say is their vision for equity. Because if you are arguing for a tiny market that only you and a few other companies can access, then you're not actually advocating for equity because you tacked on a few micro licenses. So there needs to truly be, for us to get to the next stage, an alignment, an honest evaluation, and an alignment of the priorities, the stated priorities of a company with the policies that they are actually advocating for state and federally. Because if we have that, then we're going to have more open and accessible markets. We're going to have meaningful resources that come through. It won't be just companies advocating for themselves to get tax breaks in a county or bonds to cover the development of their own facility. It will be really democratizing and scaling those to be able to help the community.
Hey, listen, you know how to say it in such a diplomatic way and straight to the point, and then drop the mic and goodbye. And that's what I love.
In me, that the diplomat is the lobbyist in me.
But you know, you make your point, and that's all I'm going. That's all I got to say. And so I love you for all of that. I think you and Todd have been great supporters and friends. And for those that think like, well, do you guys work together? Yes, we have formed this really great relationship. And I just want to put it out there on air to let folks know that I'm so appreciative of the support, of the phone calls. You guys have no idea how often we talk to one another behind the scenes, and it's so much appreciated. I want to encourage everyone as we wrap up today that, you know, October 2nd, we're going to have another important conversation about cannabis supplier diversity. Yes, that's a conversation. Yes, we need to see more businesses having more vendor contracting opportunities. Not only being on the shelf, but I'm talking about basic stuff. You know, I'm talking about security. I'm talking about, you know, when it comes to merchant processing, when it comes to accounting, when it comes to freelancing, if there's marketing and branding type of things that need to be done, buying promotional items, printing. You know what? We know that there's millions and millions of dollars that are being spent, and that supplier diversity conversation is not being had, or it's not even being pushed to the forefront. So we're having our first annual conference about this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be about it. We're going to build on it and try to change and make sure this industry does not do what other industries have done and forget about the vendoring side of it all and forget about the ancillary side. So I want to encourage you guys, go to mprocure.org. It's free. It's virtual. You ain't got to do anything. You can sit at home. We have a great keynote speaker. We have 2 great keynote speakers. So please make sure you're prepared. Amber, thank you. Todd, thank you. This is our more than a moment, guys. This is our opportunity to be able to have a conversation, to make sure that you know that we are still, we're watching you guys. We're watching cannabis. We're taking notes. MCBA got some funk coming out. You better get ready. You better get ready, y'all, because it's coming, and you can't stop it. You can't go change the numbers after the fact. So I thank you guys. I appreciate you so much. Have a great night. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.